I think that there could be an argument put forward that, if the nation is rich and has got a surplus of funds, then they would have the moral obligation or the moral pull to help others that are less fortunate. But over the span of tens of years, 10, 20, 30, I don't know whether the statistics about how much the immigrants take, for example, from the system were the same, for example, 20 years ago when it was mainly European, essentially, the migration. But let's sort of put that aside. There will be cost there because it's not like the people that came from Europe were all amazing. There was definitely some criminal element there. But let's say that there is this moral argument that, that you should be helping out. I can't see that Britain has had a surplus of funds and wealth to distribute for many, many years. Since I've arrived here, and I came here in 2006, it is unrecognizable place to what it used to be already. And I'm talking about 18 years. So for people that spend 50, 60 years living in this country, the change must have been absolutely massive. So what fundamentally seems to be happening is on mass level, on population level, the Brits are being dragged down to the global average mean, distributing their wealth and their fortune and their cultural wealth as well to benefit people that are coming into the country. That is the fortune equity Marxist idea, like in its heart.
Yeah, this is a really, really important point that a lot of people are still not talking about, which is the fact that actually, I understand the impulse of a lot of people to want to help those people out there in the world who are vulnerable and who are suffering, who are malnourished, who are living in poverty, this sort of thing. It's entirely appropriate for any kind of self-respecting nation, first world, developed, wealthy nation like Britain once was, to have that kind of impulse, because I'm a Christian. I believe that if we can, we should help people. Like, that's not an unreasonable idea. But actually, there has to be a conversation now about what the most effective way of doing that is, because mass migration into our own countries of people from the third world who are vulnerable clearly doesn't work, because what that results in is anger at the local level as communities feel they are being changed in a way that they don't like. There's tensions because different ethnic groups and religious groups are grinding up against each other in a small geographic location, and that is causing crime, and that's causing discomfort. It's causing a sense of a loss of belonging and community and social fabric and social trust. And at the national level, it's costing the taxpayer a huge amount of money. So mass migration as a means to helping the vulnerable and needy of the world is ineffective. But actually, foreign aid spending is ineffective as well, because we know that the billions and billions, endless billions, that Britain spends on foreign aid every year, that goes to various countries across the world, especially third world countries, ends up in the pockets of corrupt politicians, and the quality of life of the people at the ground level does not improve. So that clearly doesn't work either. And also something else that's I mean, this is a very very difficult conversation to have, I think, but I think it's one that needs to be had, is when you look at the example of Africa, for example. Decades of aid spending has not resulted in an improvement in the quality of life of most Africans. And that's a simple fact. You only need to look at the statistics that come out of that continent to understand this. But what it has resulted in is a massive increase in the number of people living on the continent. This is a continent of over 1 billion people now, and that wasn't the case before. And what that's meaning is there's an enormous number of people spilling over into Europe. And that's part of the reason that we're seeing the kind of mass migration we are, because there's just because of the sheer number of people who are living in poverty, who see Europe as this kind of paradise, this shining city on the hill, this ideal that they want to get to, and quite understandably so. But again, what this is resulting in is the destruction of Europe. So there has to be a conversation here, right? Because we have to answer the question. We have to come to terms with the idea, okay, are we interested in helping these places or aren't we? Because if we are, the remedies that we've been using for the last several decades have failed. And therefore, there needs to be a conversation about how we proceed from here.
If you enjoy this clip and you would like to support the show, all you have to do is press subscribe. And to watch the full conversation, you can go right here. I'll see you there.